morning. My name is Kurt Sean Clark Sr., the pastor here at Sardis Missionary Baptist Church, wishing to take this opportunity to extend to you an invitation to worship with us here on the Hill. presence on today, sharing with us via social media in the worship service of Sardis Missionary Baptist Church, as we give all of our earnest efforts to the praise and to the extolling of a risen Lord. Today, on this week after Easter, I want to revisit the intricacies of the Easter celebration as it is a part of our Christian and Protestant tradition. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 5 read, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his abundant mercy has begotten us again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that does not fade away, reserved for you in heaven, who are kept by the power of God through faith for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time." Verse 5 says, "Who are kept by the power of God through faith for salvation." I want to talk about today, kept by his power. 1 Peter chapter 1 talks about the intricacies and the importance and the significance of resurrection. Being that we are only 7 days now removed from the Christian tradition and celebration of resurrection, I thought it would be absolutely essential and significant for us to revisit what Easter is all about. Easter is about God setting forth his evidential proof, documentation, evidence, and facts that despite how horrible and how horrid things were on Friday, he still preserves us because he has unparalleled power. He has power that is not compared to anyone else. God has all power. And Easter is about not only God displaying his ability to maintain us in the midst of what we're going through, but Easter is also about us maintaining a disposition while we endure, face, and encounter the horrible realities in life. All of us, in our own way, have experienced and have encountered something that is paramount to what Jesus experienced on Good Friday. All of us have suffered death-striking blows. Death-striking blows of some sort or of some kind. And the evidential reality is that we are still here today. It speaks of how effective God is and how efficient he is in keeping us. That's more than enough reason for all of us to celebrate and to shout today, given that we are now prevented and precluded from assembling as a group of redeemed people in church spaces on Sunday. God is still keeping us. And even though some have sadly transitioned on to be with God, God is still a keeper. Paul says in the book of Corinthians, he says, because to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 5 is about God putting forth his evidential claim, putting forth his proof, putting forth his power, his documenting, and his confirming that he still has us. He has all of us in the palm of his hand. Even at the apex of our pain and our hollers, our cries, our lament, and our screams, like Jesus on Good Friday, when we may shout, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" God still sets forth his proof that he still has me. Even the cosmological order itself steps forth with evidence stating that something ain't right. When it got dark early, and when the earth began, in the words of the old clergy and minister, to reel and rock like a drunken man, even the cosmological order stepped forth with its evidence saying God is still in control. Not only does the cosmological order step forward with testimony and with its own evidential claim that something is not right, but it also is heard in their claim that God still controls the cosmological order and authorizes and maintains everything. The church has been known to describe God in awesome ways. Undeniable terminology that speaks to the compassion and that speaks to the endearing aspect of a benevolent and loving God. The church has always described God in endearing and in compassionate terms that highlight his ability to keep us, and terms that highlight his ability to care for us. The old church would sing songs like this: "When the world seems cold and your friends seem few, yet there is someone who cares for you. When you have tears in your eyes and your heart bleeds inside, yet still there is someone who cares for you." She would say, someone to care, someone to share all of your troubles like none other can do. Medea would say it this way: he'll come down from the sky and wipe the tears from your eyes because you're his child, and God still cares. Even in the midst of this pandemic, God still cares for you. 7 days now removed from the hallmark tradition and celebration of Easter. Easter itself is that seminal event and hallmark tradition of the Christian church. And despite its legacy and its legend of God's limitless power, the disappointment is that we are still inclined not to believe God. After all he did to give us Easter, some of us still doubt, and some of us still deny, and some of us are still not willing to put all our faith, hope, trust, and confidence in God. For many of us, it was because of the pain of what we saw on Friday that would not allow us to persevere to celebrate God's activity on Sunday. Now, it seems as though, or as if, we celebrate Easter, forgetting about what happened on Friday. But as I often say, that you don't have any pain in your life. It will be hard for you to measure any personal progress and gain in your life. My all-time favorite theologian is not Karl Barth. It is not Paul Tillich. It is not James Hal Cone. My all-time favorite theologian is from Florida, and her name is Betty Wright. And she said, if you want to be something, you got to go through something, because no pain means no gain. And the imposition of this global pandemic has caused all of us a lot of pain, a lot of personal turmoil, a lot of personal grief, a lot of anxiety and worry. But God says in this text today that he still keeps us. Solomon says that without Friday there can be no Sunday, by saying it this way, for the race is not given to the swift nor the battle to the strong, but unto the one who endures to the end. And as we have seen in the Easter event, the tomb is not the end. The cross was not the end. This pandemic, this global crisis, this virus is not the end. In a very real way and sense, this is merely a new chapter, a new start. It's a new beginning. Perhaps that's what Isaiah intimated when he said that God is wanting to do a new thing. Sometimes we become so fixated on what we have experienced in the past that we are wedded to the past and unwilling to walk with God into our future. But God is as much of a God of yesterday as he is today and will be on tomorrow. You heard the word of the Hebrew writer in chapter 13, around verse 5, or verse 8, wherein the Hebrew community said that God, durability is never mutated. He says that he is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Because of Easter, because of last Sunday, the church now is permitted to see itself operating at high levels of efficiency. If only she does not forget the strength of the story of Easter. We celebrate that he got up, years removed from the actual event itself, but we fail to remember that Easter is about providing us, God providing us with the evidential proof. It's about God providing us with the evidential claim and documentation and the confirmation that despite what you are going through, God still has us. That's good news tonight, because somebody somewhere is feeling abandoned by this quarantine and sheltering in place. But God is everywhere you are and everywhere where somebody else is. You don't have to feel lonely or abandoned. God is still with us. He'll never leave you nor forsake you. And as the church would say, he cares. Because you are his child, he cares for you. Despite the legacy and the legend of God's limitless power, some of us still don't believe. I'm not talking about not believing in God. I'm talking about not believing in the midst of what you're going through. Maybe you're gripped by grief. You are paralyzed by fear. But God needs you to believe him not only when the horizon is blue, or not only when the horizon is pleasant. He needs you to believe him in foul weather just as much as you believe him in fair weather. Because of Easter, the church can conceptualize all of her power. Can you imagine the church leaving the tomb, leaving the place of resurrection, going forth in ministry and responding to the word of God with all of that power understood as being available and accessible? No wonder Jesus says in the gospel that greater works than what he has done we will be able to do only if we leave the place of the tomb with a triumph of celebrating the fact that God displayed on Easter for the church. He has all power. Because of Easter, last Sunday, the church can conceptualize all that she is and all that she is intended to be. Because of Easter, the church can see herself operating and functioning at high levels of efficiency, impacting and informing its own community to be all that they were made to be all that she has the capacity to be. I remember growing up perhaps in the last of those days when parents and grandparents and guardians would always tell the children that you can be whatever you want to be. Not only because our parents and godparents and guardians had confidence in us, they had not yet jettisoned and put down the claim that greater is he that is within you than he that is in the world. Yes, the church ought to be able to see itself being all that God died on the cross and rose again on the third day morning for her to be. Easter is the hallmark celebration and tradition of a people who is filled with power, limitless capacity, and unmatched ability. Not because we operate in our own strength, our own volition, and dogged tenacity, but we operate with a power that is able to do exceeding and abundantly above all that we can ask, think, and or imagine, according to a power that God has given us, that he has kept us with, power that resides within. The church would say that there is something within that I cannot explain. There is something within that banishes the pain. There is something within that I cannot, that holdeth the reins. All I know is that on today, in the face of this pandemic, still there is something within. I want to tell you two things and take my seat. As I said in the sermon's title, that we are kept by his power. God keeps us as he preserves us in hope. The text says that he has begotten us again unto a lively hope. That's what the church is ordered to do. Keep on hoping. Keep on believing. Keep on dreaming. Keep on daring to be what you feel in your heart's core that God has called you to be. Sad reality and travesty of so many who have treaded these soils is that they go home to be with God, never maximizing their potential, never living in the realm or in the sphere of God's given hope. All of us have hope to have been something, and some of us have realized a portion of our hope, but still we are yet holding on and hoping concomitantly. We are doing it at the same time. We are being kept by God, and God is keeping us, and He does so by instilling in each of us a lively hope. A lively hope is not the converse of it. You know, some people are just sitting, twiddling their thumbs together, waiting on a breakthrough. But somebody has so rightly and sagaciously said, one sure way to go broke is by sitting around waiting on a break. You've got to get up and keep on hoping. Got to keep on daring. You got to keep on dreaming. Keep on persevering. Peter says in chapter 1, verse 3 through 5, that all of what God did at Calvary and at the site of the resurrection was so that we could be possessed by a lively hope. We are kept by His power because God has kept us. He has done so by keeping us, preserving in us hope. But He also keeps us because this text talks about us now being a part of an incorruptible inheritance. I mean, listen, He keeps us because He cannot abandon us. We are a part of His righteous, royal even. Peter talks about we are of a peculiar priesthood and people. God keeps us because He cannot abandon us. We now are a part of Him. We are His people. You remember reading Psalm 100 verse 3 that says that we are His people and the sheep of His pasture. We are here today and we will be here as long as God so desires, because He keeps us, because He preserves us in an incorruptible inheritance. We are part of God's family, and He knows all of what each and every one of us needs. He knows His children. Yes, He does. He knows His children that will forget hearing or having a conversation with Sister Clark about hearing one day KJ out in the park playing with his friends, and she heard his voice, and in the midst of everyone else's loud cries and emissions of excitement, she knew her son's voice. Because there is something about being acquainted with and familiar with the voice of your child. And every time we call out unto God, He does not mistaken my cry or plea for help with somebody else's. I told you what the old church would sing. She would say that He'll come down from the sky and He'll wipe the tears from your eyes. Why? Because you are His child and He cares for you. We are kept in hope. We are kept and preserved in an inheritance that is incorruptible, that fadeth not away. There is something about who we are now as a part of an eternal and divine family that never ends, that never perishes, that never wastes away. Not only are we kept by God in hope, not only are we kept by God in an inheritance that is incorruptible, but we are also kept by God, the text says, as he prepares to deliver us through faith. As he delivers us through faith, we are kept by God in hope, in inheritance, and through faith. I don't care what no one else decides, or I don't care what anyone else decides to believe. I'm going to keep on maintaining faith. I'm going to, in the words of one of our old senior civil rights statesmen and preachers and legends, I'm going to keep faith alive. I'm going to keep on trusting in God, because there is something that is indescribable about faith. You see, faith works in tandem with hope. It works in tandem with an inheritance. It is only appropriate and apropos for those of us who have become a part of an inheritance that is incorruptible to maintain faith that just like God has started a good work in us, he alone is able to keep that work and to preserve that work that he started in us. The old church would say, if I can just hold on until tomorrow, if I can just keep the faith through the night, not some stuff, not just a part of some stuff, not an apportioned allocation of things, but if I can keep the faith through the night, the church would say everything is going to be all right, and we need to muster up all the might that we can to maintain faith, not in some corrective order that comes down from the CDC or WHO or from some national government organization in the midst of this pandemic, but we need to keep on having faith in God, because God is going to show up for us. I often say, and you've heard it said before, when God shows up, he does so only in and for the reason of his people giving him an expression of appreciation of his attending to us. God shows up. And he does so only to show out. Look back over your life. All of us have been through some murky, dark, abysmal, dreary, and dismal places. But God has brought us through. And that's all I want to tell you today. Keep on believing, because God's gonna bring you through. Because one glad morning, when life down here is over, all of us are going to be permitted, those of us who love God are going to be permitted to be with him. Keep the faith. Keep your confidence in God. Because even in the midst of this pandemic, God is going to bring us through. You ought to tell somebody today that we are, not that only we have been, but we yet today are kept by God's power. Amen.